At this point, I don't expect anyone watching to be completely in the dark when it comes to Studio Series 86 Optimus Prime. At least I hope none of you are. Because, well, if you're familiar with this channel, you probably know what I'm about to say, and if you're not, we're going to go through most of the accessories pretty quickly. So if you want an in-depth look at anything that came in the box that isn't a truck cab that turns into a robot, this isn't the best video for that. I'm not going to skip any of it, but it's gonna be relatively quick. I'm just not a big fan of most of Optimus Prime's accoutrement. I don't care about the Energon Axe very much, blast effects or whatever, and in my eyes, the trailer and the repair drone and roller are pointless wastes of plastic that inflate the figure's price points and are a pain in the butt to find a spot for on the shelf. That's just me. I completely understand and acknowledge that other people really like that stuff, and that's great if you do. For me, it's just about as useful as the packaging the toy itself comes in. But let's just get this out of the way, yeah? That way I can move on to what I really care about, and you all get to stop listening to me complain about this. I'll even do you the kindness of avoiding "even though I don't like it" qualifiers. Now, the trailer itself does look good as far as Prime trailers go. There's an almost perfect amount of color separation between the dark gray of the main trailer box, the lighter gray stripe on either side, the blue along the bottom, and then the black and silver that was used for the wheels. It might have looked a little better if the rear fender plastic was a little bit lighter or darker, so it didn't blend in quite so much with the rest of the trailer bulk. Like, it is slightly, like a slightly different shade in this light, but it's practically indistinct how different it is. But hey, at least they painted the taillights. There's plenty of molded detailing all over this thing too, and even on the underside. And even on the little fold-down legs that help the trailer stand up when you don't have Prime plugged into it. Like, there's actually a little bit of sculpt to those as well. Of course, you can also fold out the supports on either side, which I'll admit are probably the most sturdy and effective rendition of this concept I've seen since MP10. Though, admittedly, I have been avoiding MP44. I'm just not a fan of that thing. Fold down the rear doors, crack open the top. Yeah. And, oh look, it's the inside of Optimus Prime's trailer. Once again, there's loads of molded detail to appreciate if you're into that sort of thing. And I do like that you can store Prime's Ion Blaster, Energon Axe, and 2 blast effects in dedicated storage spots. Though the blaster can also plug into the back of the cab using one of the 2 rectangular holes and what I think is the blaster's clip. It kind of wedges in like that. It's not going to work this way because it doesn't, like, yeah, that's that's not going to work. But like I said, you can peg it in to that rectangular hole on either side, and it holds. Oh, and before I forget, you can untab the rear bumper, pop the underside of the trailer open to reveal 2 very specific effect parts, but I like that they have dedicated storage. They plug into the bottom of Prime's cab mode. You just look for they're shaped very specifically. You want this kind of longer, thinner bit on the outside, and they tab into these little spots right behind the wheels. They plug into the bottom of Prime's cab mode, and he can do the thing, and wow, am I annoyed, because I had already written these off as a waste of time in plastic, but now that I'm seeing them in action, I kind of love it. This is still ridiculous, and it's the kind of remember that one scene pandering that I've really started to get tired of with Masterpiece figures, but darn it, this has just the right amount of silly to make me happy. As for the rest of the junk in Prime's trunk, well, the weapons will have to wait until robot mode, but Roller looks decent and even has a nice shiny silver top. I also like that it plugs into the base of the repair thingy so it doesn't rattle around when the trailer is closed up. You just use these little slots and these little tabs there, and that holds it in place very securely. Roller does loosely plug into the trailer. You can use either of the peg holes on Roller, though it doesn't go all the way down on this one. But this is not a 5mm peg. It's a little bit thinner than that, so it does kind of rattle around and it doesn't hold, but like it doesn't have to because gravity does the work. But you can plug the trailer into Roller, and you can haul it around, which is bound to make a few people happy, I'm sure. Or you can remove the repair drone, stick it on top of Roller using those 2 pegs, and you can use it to do this. It's kind of nothing, but I do also kind of appreciate it. As for the drone itself, it unfolds quite a bit and looks like this, and is definitely more complex than what we got in Earthrise. Though all I have is the Holiday Prime version, so there you go. I'm still ambivalent to this, but again, this is bound to make some folks happy, so I'm at least happy for them. Also, there we go. The little canopy opens if you want to have the canopy open. It is too small for anything to sit in, though. I don't have a Diaclone pilot to try it with, but I'm reasonably sure it's too small for one of them, too. Oh, actually, you can plug the blast effects into the nubbins on the front if you want, and the little claw can very loosely hold the ion blaster. I'll admit this is kind of fun. It is very, very loosely holding that blaster, though. But forget about all that. It's time to finally talk about Prime himself. And this... hang on. And this sure is an Optimus Prime truck cab. Yes, it's the cleanest it's probably been in a non-masterpiece figure. The colors are good, the shape is nice, and so on, but it's just Optimus Prime. I don't mean that as a bad thing, but we sure have seen a whole lot of these over the past few years. Few months, even. But yes, this is good, and I do like it. The way the back section flattens and evens out a little is neat, and it's cool how they were able to sort of hide away the robot mode head when you look at the cab from behind. And look! Black wheels with silver rims! That's always nice. The front is a bit panely and full of creases, but the shape is there, and I like how all the necessary details like the bumper, grille, lights, and side mirrors are all picked out in a nice silver. And of course it's great how the front and side windows are done using what looks to be translucent blue plastic with silver painted plastic surfaces behind them. It gives the clear windows everybody but me seems to love without adding any structural weaknesses or putting compacted robot bits on display. So, yes. The only problem I really have with the cab is the way it doesn't ever want to lay completely flat. Like, it's a little bit better now, but it still is just leaning forward ever so slightly. Whenever I look at it from the side, it's just always angled forward and down just a little bit where the blue meets the red. I don't know. I think some of it is me doing something wrong, because before I was trying to straighten out the knees all the way, and that would lead to the tabs on these panels not tabbing into the backs of the thighs like they should. I feel like this is probably the most not leaning forward it's been since I got this figure. So I guess the trick is don't straighten those knees out all the way. I might still be missing something, but it just does seem to want to lean forward just a little bit. Putting the cab and the trailer back together, you can probably tell that this Prime is meant to be Commander class. This alt mode, when you factor in the big gray box, is pretty big, honestly. Big and unexpectedly dense. The cab in particular has a good amount of heft to it, but the trailer, I'll admit, is no slouch. The plastic on it feels oddly great, too, which is weird to say, but I also think it's worth mentioning. It's a real nice combination of glossy and thick, and now that I'm holding both of these together, it might actually be almost the same weight as the cab when all of the accessories and whatnot are stored inside. If you're like me and prefer to ignore the trailer, though, well, Prime is still a good size. I want to say the cab on its own is somewhat leaderish. Definitely at least Voyager size, but he does look and feel more substantial than that. Now, before we turn this truck cab into a humanoid robot, I have a Ko-fi and a Patreon links both at the end of the video as well as down in the description. Otherwise, the typical YouTube thing of like, comment, share, subscribe, that's also very helpful. Now, to transform Studio Series 86 Optimus Prime, I'm going to start by rotating the wheels in, because I always forget to do that, and you kind of have to do it, especially to get things started, but rotate the wheels in. Now you want to take this red piece and bring it down. There's this blue tab that sits up in here, but there's also a tab here that sits on the side of the leg, and you want to get this curved piece around the wheels. So what I end up doing is pulling down and rotating this slightly so that it can clear that wheel, and then it'll rotate around. And this is why you want to rotate these wheels first, because this panel will crash into them and you won't be able to move it any further. So bring this down, rotate it around 180 degrees, and swing it around, and now this bit will just slide into this little gap right down here and nestle in there, and that is one entire side of one leg done. This one, same deal, these freaking smokestacks. You want to pull down and kind of rotate, bring this down, rotate around the rest of the way, bring it in, make sure that goes into that little notch and slide it in. Then we can Want to do this too before I forget. Want to pull the wheels out slightly because this red piece in the center here actually tabs into them. So just flex those out a little bit and then flip this up. Because otherwise this is going to get in the way and I don't want it to get stuck on the wheels or anything like that. So with that done now, I'm going to bring this down. These blue panels clip in right back here. These little tabs here. So this all swings down and this will clip in here. Now, going to fold out the toes and the heels. And I do have the upside down heels. Eventually I may try to fix it, but I don't have I needed auto punch or something. I have little pins, but I'm not using a manual pin pusher and a hammer and stuff for this. That's ridiculous. So I may swap these around eventually, but it purely affects extremely minor aesthetics, just the backs of the feet and the very back of the truck mode or a truck cab mode, which is usually covered by a trailer anyway. So I just don't care enough to make the effort right now. Eventually, if I get a center punch that I can use, I might do it. But for now, these stay where they are. Anyway, I'm going to split the legs apart. Next, going to take these back panels, untab them from the backs of the thighs, swing them down, and they will peg into the backs of the calves and become the backs of the calves. Then you want to take these inner panels. I find it's best to just kind of grab up here because it sticks out a little bit. We want to take this inner panel and pop that off. It pegs in very securely down here, but untap this, swing it around and plug it into the front. And there is front of the leg. And then finally you want to take this tab here and swing that down inside the foot and give the ankle a little click. Something to be aware of. This is an easy thing to miss. I feel like a lot of people have probably done this, but you need to get this tab out of the way before you collapse the foot. You might see there's a very noticeable stress mark right in there. That's because I was trying to close this while that tab is in place, and that does not work. It just can't work. So you want to get this out of the way before you attempt to collapse the foot. Now it'll collapse just fine. But yeah, just make absolutely sure when you're going back into cab mode that you get that. And by extension, this one, because that also tucks in there. You want to get both of those things folded out first before you collapse the feet. Anyway, from there, this leg is the same deal. You just untab this piece, just tabs in right there, swing it around, and it tabs into these two tabs on the inverse side of the wheel well. Now for the upper body, I'm going to untab the sides of the cab here. I find it's easiest to just go up here and just pull that out. So that's really simple. These untab, swing down, and then this also swings in. I'm holding up here because I've popped this off a couple of times up here because it's pinned here, but it's not pinned here. So I'm just making sure it doesn't pop off. Then this piece folds in. On this side too, just fold that in, bring it down, fold that in, and then going to pull forward and down a little bit to get the entire front section of the cab just kind of out of the way a little bit. Because next we need to untab the arms, and they do tab in up here at about the shoulder. You can kind of see the right there, you can see the tab, but the more secure tabs are down here by the forearm. You kind of have to wiggle that a little bit to untab it. Then you can untab this. Then this can kind of come up and swing around. But here you can see there are these two pegs right here that peg in here. Those are very secure. So those are the ones you got to look out for. But bring this out, and this will actually kind of click into place. And we'll just finish the arm now. So you want to, I'm just bringing it out to get it out of the way. You want to rotate this piece back, then bend this all the way forward because the elbow actually bends backwards for the sake of the transformation. So bend it forward. Then this door pops open. And flip out the fist and close back up. And also uncurl the fingers just cuz. So there is one arm done. Other arms, same exact deal as you'd expect. You want to untab it from down here first and then up here. Bring it around and click it in. Bring it up. Rotate it what looks like and feels like you're doing backwards, but rotate it that way. Swing this around. Open this up. Swing the fist around, and we'll just bring the fingers out while we're doing this. Bring the fingers around. And then when you close this back up, there's a tab on the back of the little bit that the hand is on that tabs into the panel there. So you just want to make sure that's lined up. And that is 2 arms. Now, bring this out just a little bit more to get it out of the way. These bits on the side here both flip up. And we're not doing the rotating yet because we still have to get this stuff out of the way, but I like getting them out of the way because then I have more of like a space to grip here. But anyway, these pieces here shift back and down. They're on this kind of double hinge here. So these shift back and kind of shift and turn until they are making his flanks. This piece can now swing down and make the grill tummy. And with all of this taken care of, I'd like to have this spot clear while I'm working on it. But with that done, this blue piece can swing up and around and make his posterior. Rotate the upper part of the torso. It's basically a Classics Prime. So that rotates around. Then these flaps can come back down and they actually line up with the flanks to fill those in. Now, this thing, I feel like other people have said this, but basically this panel here that the head sits on clicks in a little uncomfortably tight, but I've transformed him back and forth a few times and it gets easier. It's just that first time getting this into place is absurd. It requires so much force. But anyway, just going to kind of want to use this as leverage and pull this so that it rotates this way, counterclockwise. So I'm just going to try and pull this while pushing down here, and that unsnaps it. And I prefer to do that first. And going back into vehicle mode with the head kind of curled up like you need it to, what I find works best is to use your fingers up here under these little spots to brace and then push with your thumbs here to rotate that panel in place until it clicks. But anyway, lift up here, push down here with your thumb to unclip that. And once it's unclipped, then curl this around and this will tab in over this very large tab there. And there's just enough space for this panel to flip inside the torso. And that will come up. Just going to bring the arms up again now. Now for the backpack, I'm going to take the grill, fold it out, collapse this piece in, and then fold it back in. These panels here will fold in, and what ends up happening is this panel was folded down like this for truck mode, but there's actually a double hinge here. So what you want to do is that this part of the hinge stays up. You want to bring it down on the upper part, or this part of the hinge. So when these come in, this comes down and this little hook section will go over this lip here, and this kind of locks everything together. And with that done, now you can take these bits on either side here, and these fold up, and then all of this folds in, and this tab goes into this slot on the back of the panel that the head sits on. Just push that into place. Rotate the waist around, which is very stiff. And as one final thing, you take his little antenna and push them back. And they do, this is something that I wish MP10 did. Maybe not MP10. There are primes with like the rotating ear antenna things. This guy, they finally did a thing that was really smart with this, because you have to move the antenna forward for the transformation, because otherwise the head won't fit into the body cavity. But there's like a soft detent. When you rotate it back, you can feel it kind of click into place. And that's how you know you've got them lined up properly. So you don't have to worry about constantly messing with his ears to try and get them lined up. It just kind of thunks into place. And that is the best way to handle that. And I just can't believe it took this long for a Prime with that kind of a transformation scheme to do something like that. Anyway, there we go. There is Studio Series 86 Optimus Prime in his robot mode. And that was involved. Fun, but involved. I mean, this is a Commander class figure after all. I'm not about to pull out the Sunbow chart or even look up cartoon stills, but this is without a doubt an Optimus Prime toy. In all seriousness, this does look great. The colors look, or at least feel, perfect and match what I think I remember from the show really well. I also like how they did the thing that they usually do with Optimus, where they went with the simpler cartoon deco, but left a lot of more modern design elements, like the forearm, play, pause, button looking details. They left all of that in the sculpt. Like you can also see more sculpting in the thighs, more intricate detailing tucked around different spots of the legs. So it's cartoon deco, but not flat. I also think it's kind of neat how the belly grill isn't what we saw in truck mode, but the windows are. But at the same time, the chest isn't awkwardly puffed out on both sides like it is with the Earthrise figure, because some of the truck mass is incorporated with the backpack. Speaking of, I respect how well the backpack folds up and just sort of becomes Prime's back. It sticks out a little bit, sure, but I don't think it's a stretch to say this manages to be better than even MP44, at least from what I've seen. The whole robot mode is impressively clean, really. The only thing that stands out to me is his butt. I don't mind having this little blue thing flip around between modes, but did it really need to stick out this far? Look at that. Maybe I'm missing something important, but I feel like this could have easily been a centimeter or two closer to the rest of Prime's backside. I guess since I'm in complain mode, I also wish the shoulder smokestacks weren't so loose. They sort of tab in just below the swivel here, but they're really easy to untab, and once that happens, they're likely to swivel all the time. It's annoying. I think I know why they did it this way, but I'll get to that later, but I just wish that they weren't quite so this. Just make them a little bit more snug. Maybe make them tab in a little bit more snugly. I don't know. And these aren't pegged in. You can't just pop these out. These are inside, I think they're mushroom pegs or something that are inside the shoulders, so they're enclosed. You can't just take them off. The head sculpt is great and very Optimus Prime. It may be the best we've gotten outside of Masterpiece so far. It's also the head sculpt I prefer, personally. The one that doesn't have the baseball cap brim and doesn't have the more squared off facial proportions, though I know that's more G1 accurate, at least I think the first season. That said, with this being a Commander class figure that's designed to pander, I'm kind of surprised they didn't include an alternate head option along with all of the other stuff he already comes with. You can get a decent amount of expression out of it too. The head's on a ball joint that lets it tilt up and down and side to side a little bit, though more up and down would have been nice. And of course it can rotate 360, but you don't want to rotate it for the transformation. The shoulders can also go out all the way, with plenty of room for the head. You don't have to worry about those smokestacks, which is legitimately great. And like I was saying before, the whole point of the smokestacks untabbing and rotating, I'm pretty sure, is because if the smokestacks are out like this and you bring the arm back, you could snap them. But if you rotate them, you can bring the arm back basically all the way and just like rotate the smokestack out of the way, so you don't have to worry about damaging them or anything like that. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that's why the smokestacks do that. I still wish they weren't as loose as they are, though. But there is bicep rotation along with 90 degrees of elbow bend, which is fine. I think maybe it could have been able to bend a little bit more because this is a Commander class figure. But you do get wrist swivels on both hands, obviously, and the fingers are articulated. The separation is a bit weird because it makes the index finger look massive compared to the other 3 digits, but it's only awkward when you look really close, so it's fine. And it lets you do the beckoning or the pointing or whatever with the typical 1 and 3 split that you get with like a lot of modern Masterpiece figures. Anyway, you also get a full 360 on the shoulder rotation. It looks a little awkward when you bring it up like this because of how it's centered a little bit more low, but that's fine. You get a little bit of backwards butterfly if you unclick the transformation joints, but you can also, this is clicked in, you can unclick it this way for some forward butterfly motion that can actually go like all the way forward. So Prime can do the Jersey Shore posturing, I guess. Optimus Prime says, just do it! Or you can use both joints at the same time to create whatever this is. Now this is the real long arm Prime. There's no ab crunch, but the waist can rotate all the way around. As I said before, it's very stiff, but it can. You've got butt skirts and front skirts that are split, and with them out of the way, the hips can go forward to 90, back to 90, actually slightly above 90, and out to 90. The thighs can swivel almost all the way around, but the white casing kind of crashes into the joints up in here. Zoom in so you can see what I'm talking about. It kind of crashes into this. So you can only go in like that far, but you can go around the other way pretty far. Single jointed knees bend a respectable amount beyond 90, especially for a single jointed knee, and those are also pretty stiff. And if you straighten them out, you can actually straighten them out just a little bit more so that they lean forward a bit, which you can use to do like the slightly angled like hero posture, whatever it's called. I don't know. You have them curved forward like that. And the ankles, once they're unclicked, can tilt up to 90. This is a very posable Prime. I like it. And at this point, we can take the trailer, open it up, and set it up on its end to make Prime's repair bay, which is fine. It looks better than the Earthrise, or I guess in this case, Holiday Prime version, anyway. The Ion Blaster, just peg into Prime's hand. You can curl the fingers around, as you do. The peg does feel a bit too short, but it holds in place pretty well. You just have to make sure not to curl the 3 smaller fingers in so much that they push the peg back up, because if you push those in more, you'll see it pushes that peg up and that loosens it more. So you want to kind of have these out, push it down all the way, then curl them in but don't force it, and he'll be able to hold it just fine. The Ion Blaster can also peg into the backpack on either side if you prefer to store it in the robot mode, which I like as an option because I'm probably going to ditch the trailer and just have Prime with the blaster on the shelf. And it's just this tab on either side and the slot here that pegs into, and you want the handle pointed out because that's the only way it'll fit. But yeah, you can peg it in on either side. I'm glad there's a place for the one accessory I plan to use in either mode. And once he's holding it, you can use one of the included blast effects to do the pew-pew. I guess you could also use a siege blast effect if you want to do that. So there is that. I appreciate getting actual new blast effects, though, and how these are more like cartoony looking. They don't fit at all with what we've gotten so far, which really makes them stand out. But I kind of feel like if they're gonna keep doing blast effects, maybe try doing this with like the Studio Series stuff more often. I don't know. Also, you can kind of use the blast effects with the smokestacks, but I'd rather not because of the silver. I just don't want to risk scraping or rubbing any of it off. I haven't been able to find any fun little connection ports for the repair drone, though, so that's a point for Earthrise, I guess. This thing just has the 2 pegs on the bottom, and there's like this tab here, this little tab here that's for the arm when it's folded up, but like it can't actually tab into anything, and he doesn't have any peg holes back here or anything like that, so like, yeah, can't really do any attach the repair drone to Prime shenanigans, which is a little disappointing. The Energon Axe is a different story altogether, though. I do not like this thing. I'm okay with it in principle, and having it attached to the peg that sticks out when you fold one of Prime's fists into the forearms is way better than the usual stick it over the hand approach, but unfortunately, my axe is warped, like really warped. This thing is a freaking mess. It's at this weird angle, but like more than that, look at the base. This is where it's supposed to connect to the forearm. That's not flat at all. It can it's not warped so much that it can't peg in, but when it is pegged in, yeah. I don't know if this was a molding issue or if it was still too warm when it was tossed into the bag with the other accessories or whatever, but it's almost unusable. And I don't think this is something that I can fix by heating it up again. Thankfully, I don't really care about the Energon axe as an accessory very much, but it's still kind of disappointing when I get a rather expensive figure like this and a part of it is borked right out of the box. And yes, there's a matrix. Don't get me wrong, I'm not annoyed about its inclusion here, because this is meant to be the definitive 86 movie Optimus, so it would be criminal for a matrix to be left out. And it's implemented well, with the chest windows tabbing in pretty securely into this gray panel when closed, and there's the separate gray panel that folds up in pseudo-masterpiece style. The chamber itself, though, is kind of disappointingly bare. It's just a bunch of red plastic. Personally, this is fine with me because I don't plan to open it again after this video is done, but, you know, seeing as this is Studio Series 86, you know, the go-to G1 Optimus Prime, I feel like maybe they could have done a little bit more on the inside. As for the Matrix itself, I'm not sure what to say here. It's a modern Matrix accessory. It's cast in translucent blue. The core is painted in this like copper or bronze color. The handles are silver. This Prime can hold it though, so there is that. Height-wise, he's one of the bigger retail-based robot primes I've gotten that isn't a gimmick-laden kids extravaganza. Emphasis on base robot because, yes, Armada Prime, obviously. But as a standalone humanoid made out of a truck, he's a good size. Roughly leaderish, so significantly smaller than all of the other Commander-class robots that aren't Rodimus Prime. But as tends to be the case, I'm okay with that given how complex the overall design and engineering are. Keep in mind, a not insignificant portion of the MSRP is being used up by the trailer and all the accessories, too. I'd have been cool with paying less than Commander prices and more than Leader for just Prime with the Ion Blaster, but Hasbro still wants to stick with dedicated price points, so whatever. Point is, he's not as big as 86 Magnus or Armada Prime, but for a G1 design that isn't a masterpiece, he's nice and big, and solid, and posable. This is a very good Optimus Prime, is what I'm getting at. A big part of me is wishing that someday we'll get a black repaint, preferably without the trailer, and if that ever happens, I will immediately sell this guy off to get that. But since I highly doubt that'll happen, at least not anytime soon, I'm quite happy hanging on to Studio Series 86 Commander-class Optimus Prime. Despite my moaning and groaning about all the extra bits I don't care about, I can't pretend that I don't really like this figure. Even my overly jaded self has to admit this is fantastic stuff. He looks great, transforms great, poses great, and he feels really great in hand. This is the point where I'd recommend getting one for yourself, but I have a feeling most of you either already own one or plan to get one in the future, so I guess this is affirming your choices? Anyway, that's plenty of 86 Prime talk from me. What do you all think of this guy? As if we don't already know what everybody thinks. Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. Thank you everybody for watching, and, well, I guarantee you the next figure we look at won't stack up to this one, but I'll give the bot a go anyway.